The New Jersey drone situation just got way interesting. Recently, headlines have been buzzing about mysterious drones spotted over New Jersey. For many, the sight of drones tracking these lights is unsettling. Are they spying on us? Are they here to protect us? Or could they be monitoring something we don't yet understand? Many have asked if it is possible for the world to see otherworldly beings. What's going on in New Jersey? People have been looking up and spotting something strange. Drones. Or at least, that's what we're being told. But what if it's not about the drones at all? What if these sightings point to something much bigger? Something beyond what we're ready to understand? Are we seeing technology? Beings from another world? Or perhaps something even more extraordinary? And Christians are asking, can we even see mysterious beings like angels? It all started with reports of drones flying in coordinated patterns over New Jersey. People were quick to take videos, snapping pictures of the night sky. At first, it seemed like a routine thing, maybe some kind of government test or a hobbyist with fancy toys. But then, something changed. Eyewitnesses began describing strange lights, movements that didn't make sense, and a feeling that they were seeing something they couldn't explain. Here's the thing. Drones don't glow like this. They don't pulse or hover in ways that seem almost alive. And they certainly don't interact with their surroundings like these objects are reported to. Could it be that these so-called drones are something else entirely? And if so, what? Let's take a closer look. Is it just phones or special devices that can see these things? Now, here's where it gets weird. In several videos, we see what looks like drones approaching these glowing lights, or what some are calling plasmoids. As the drones get closer, something happens. The lights change, almost as if they're responding. Let's shift gears for a moment. If you've read the Bible, you know it's full of descriptions of heavenly beings, things that don't look anything like us. In Ezekiel 1, we hear about wheels within wheels, sparkling like topaz, moving in ways that defy understanding. Could these glowing lights and their strange movements be connected to something divine? Are we seeing echoes of ancient visions in our modern skies? And if these are biblical beings, is it possible for our eyes to see them?
Biblical references to otherworldly beings. When we plunge into the pages of the Bible, we come across some pretty fascinating things that sounds like it's from a sci-fi movie. It's true. The Bible doesn't come right out and talk about aliens like we see in movies or read in science fiction. But it does mention some unusual beings and events that make you wonder. Could these be about creatures from other worlds? The Nephilim. Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 through 4 mentions beings, known as Nephilim, that some consider supernatural or celestial. This verse has sparked endless debate about whether the Nephilim were earthly giants or something more divine or alien. Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 through 4. Now it happened, when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and desirable, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose and desired. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive and remain with man forever, because he is indeed flesh, sinful, corrupt, given over to sensual appetites. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. There were Nephilim, men of stature, notorious men, on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God lived with the daughters of men, and they gave birth to their children. These were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown, great reputation, fame. This brief mention has sparked endless debates and theories. Were the Nephilim angels, fallen beings, or simply men of great stature and power? The sons of God are not earthly beings. This refers to the unnatural progeny of the partnership between the sons of God and the daughters of men. However, there were individuals of distinctive size on the earth both before and after the flood, and also afterward. These ones before the flood were notable because of the diabolical element of their parentage. They were the mighty men of old, men of renown. At first glance, there's no indication of angelic or demonic involvement. A passage in Job, on the other hand, provides a better understanding. God explains to Job his omnipotence by recounting his power over creation. Job chapter 38, verses 4 through 7. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you know and have understanding. Who determined the measurements of the earth, if you know? Or who stretched the measuring line on it? On what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God, angels, shouted for joy. The morning stars are best interpreted as angels. We also know that mankind had not yet been created when God laid the foundation of the earth, so the reference to sons of God is another reference to angels, implying that the sons of God in Genesis 6 are also angels. The three main perspectives on the identity of God's sons are as follows. Number 1, they were fallen angels. Second, they were powerful human rulers. Or third, they were godly descendants of Seth intermarrying with wicked descendants of Cain. The fact that the phrase sons of God always referred to angels in the Old Testament lends support. Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 through 2 contrasts the sons of God with man, implying that these are non-human beings. Genesis chapter 6 verse 1 says that man began to multiply, and daughters were born to them. The Hebrew word for man is the generic term for mankind, as used in Genesis chapter 5 verses 1 through 2. The sons of God are contrasted with man. Thus, the sons of God were distinct from man and married all mankind's daughters. As a result, the sons of God must be non-human beings of some kind. These beings were filled with lust when they saw the daughters of men, and the angels cohabitated with the women. This produced offspring who were half angelic and half human, known as Nephilim. However, these beings would not have free reign on the earth. God was going to send a great flood. The Great Flood. Picture the world back then, full of life and busy with all sorts of things happening. But even with all this, there was a dark problem growing. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Genesis chapter 6 verse 5. The Lord saw that the wickedness, depravity of man was great on the earth, and that every imagination or intent of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. God tells Noah in Genesis chapter 6, verses 13 through 14. God said to Noah, I intend to make an end of all that lives, for through men the land is filled with violence, and behold, I am about to destroy them together with the land. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make it in it rooms, stalls, pens, coops, nests, cages, compartments, and coat it inside and out with pitch, bitumen. Can you imagine what Noah must have felt, being given such a monumental task to build an ark, a giant boat, in preparation for a catastrophic flood that would wipe out every living thing? God did not intend for the human race to remain in this rebellious state indefinitely. This means that our rejection of God has reached a point of no return. God will not woo us indefinitely. There will come a time when he says, no more. The Bible gives us hints at a world that has deviated far from what God intended. So, as Noah builds his ark, a massive vessel, about 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high, you can feel that something really bad is about to happen. Continuing from the story, Noah gathers his family in pairs of all living creatures, as instructed by God. The ark turns into a sign of safety and hope during the flood. Then, the rains come. It's not just a heavy downpour. It's like the heavens themselves have opened up. Water covers the earth, higher than the mountains. Genesis chapter 7, verses 21 through 23. All living beings that moved on the earth perished. Birds and cattle, domestic animals, wild animals, all things that swarm and crawl on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on the dry land, all in whose nostrils was the breath and spirit of life, died. God destroyed, blotted out, wiped away every living thing that was on the surface of the earth. Man and animals, and the crawling things and the birds of the heavens were destroyed from the land. Only Noah and those who were with him in the ark remained alive. After a period of 40 days and 40 nights, the rain finally stopped. Eventually, the waters receded, and the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. To put it in perspective, it's like parking a car on a tall hill after a heavy storm. But instead of a car, it's a massive boat. And instead of a hill, it's a group of mountains. You would think this would be the last time we read about the Nephilim or giants, but after this we see various instances. The exploration of Canaan. It appears that the fallen angels committed their sin again after the flood. However, it is likely that it occurred to a much lesser extent than before the flood. We go to Numbers chapter 13, verse 33. Here we meet a new set of characters: Moses, the Israelite spies, and the inhabitants of Canaan, including the descendants of Anak, who are linked to the Nephilim. Who exactly were these descendants of Anak? The Bible introduces them during the story of Moses sending 12 spies to explore the land of Canaan. The spies come back with a startling report. We saw the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. This verse suggested that the descendants of Anak were related to the Nephilim, known for their great size and strength. Moses, leading the Israelites out of Egypt, sends spies to scout the promised land. The spies come back terrified, saying, "Hold on, didn't we just say the Nephilim were wiped out in the flood?" In the Old Testament, giant is more commonly referred to by the word Rephaim. Throughout the entirety of the Old Testament's narrative, the Rephaim serve as a fascinating and significant recurring motif. Where does the Bible mention Rephaim? The Rephaim are first mentioned in Genesis 14. The Rephaim, also with other large people, are also mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 2, verses 20 through 21. It is also regarded as the land of the Rephaim, of giant stature, for Rephaim used to live there, but the Ammonites call them Zamzummim, a great numerous people, and tall as the Anakim. But the Lord destroyed them before the sons of Ammon, and they dispossessed them and settled in their place. The name Rephaim, which literally means terrible ones, gives us an indication of the intimidating and fearsome nature of these individuals. This is not the only time we see these giants after the flood. In Deuteronomy chapter 3, there is an interesting story about King Og of Bashan, a giant man. Og is referred to as the last of the Rephaim in Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 11, and later in the books of Numbers and Joshua. Rephaim is a Hebrew word for giants. In the days of Moses, Og, king of Bashan, was a mighty and infamous Amorite king of Bashan who reigned at Ashtaroth, who fought the Israelites on their way to the Promised Land. As the Israelites journeyed towards the Promised Land, they encountered many formidable foes, and King Og was one of them. He fought fiercely against the Israelites and led his entire army against them. The king Israel had to deal with was King Og of Bashan, who sent his entire army against Israel. The Israelites then marched towards Bashan, where King Og confronted them at Edrei. Because of Og's reputation, the Israelites were terrified. "Do not be afraid of him, for I have delivered him into your hands, along with his entire army and his land," God assured Moses. The book of Deuteronomy includes a narrative of a conflict that occurred between forces led by Moses and those led by Og. According to the biblical account, Og was the ruler of 60 different walled cities, all of which were taken by the Israelites. Israel slayed the entire forces and conquers all 60 cities in the kingdom of Og, which had the same tall walls as Sion's. When God chose to hand over an enemy to his people, even strong fortified cities were no match for the enemy. In addition to this, he was a very large man and slept in a bed made of iron that was 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide, 13.5 feet long and 6 feet wide. The inclusion of this detail draws attention to Og's massive stature. A man in need of this size bed was most likely tall. Israel destroyed the entire population and took control of all 60 cities in Og's kingdom, which had the same high walls of Sion's. When God decided to hand over an enemy to his people, High-walled cities were no match. Later, at the city of Jericho, the most spectacular demonstration of that truth would occur. According to Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 11, Og was a descendant of the Rephaites, indicating a man of great stature, or giant. His colossal bed had become famous and, no doubt, had been saved as a memento. Joshua chapter 12, verse 4. In the territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the remnant of the Rephaim, who lived at Ashtaroth and at Edrei, based on a few theories that Bible scholars and enthusiasts consider. Some suggest that Nephilim might not have referred to a specific group of people, but rather was a term used to describe any large and mighty warriors. So, the descendants of Anak might not have been direct descendants of the pre-flood Nephilim, but were simply similar in stature and strength. Another idea is that something similar happened again after the flood. This time the sons of God came down to earth and created a new group of Nephilim. This could be why there were giant people, like the descendants of Anak and Canaan. There is a less popular theory that suggests the gene for the Nephilim, which are giant beings, survived through one of Noah's family members. Although it's a bit of a stretch, some people believe that the wives of Noah's sons might have carried this gene. However, in this perspective, the story of Nephilim isn't about physical giants but represents moral and spiritual challenges. The giants symbolize the significant obstacles that the Israelites had to overcome in their faith journey. So, how do these pieces fit together? On one hand, we have Noah and his family, the sole human survivors of the flood. On the other, centuries later, there's a mention of the Nephilim, or their descendants, in Canaan. Number 7 and 6. The Cherubim and the Ophanim. Ezekiel's vision. Similarly, Ezekiel's vivid vision of four-faced creatures riding a flying chariot, Ezekiel chapter 1 verses 5 through 28, reveals beings that are not of this world. In this account, he describes a whirlwind emerging from the north, a massive cloud with flashing lightning, and something resembling glowing metal at the center of the blaze. Upon closer inspection, he observes 4 living creatures that resemble humans, but each one possesses 4 faces and 4 wings. In the text, it is described that the legs of the beings are straight and their feet resemble a calf's hoof. They shine like burnished bronze. Each of the 4 beings has a human face, but on the right side of their head, they have the face of a lion, while on the left, they have the face of an ox, and an eagle's face is on the top. This description appears to be something out of this world. The cherubim are celestial beings created by God. They appear in the Bible after Adam and Eve's fall from grace as the first of the angelic hierarchy. Genesis 3 accounts for what happened in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve disobeyed God's command by eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. After doing so, they could have also eaten from the tree of life, which would have given them eternal life. They were forced to leave their paradise, which resulted in Adam potentially going back and disobeying God again. However, the answer to this is given in the following verse. Genesis chapter 3, verse 24. So God drove the man out, and at the east of the Garden of Eden, he permanently stationed the cherubim and the sword with the flashing blade, which turned round and round in every direction to protect and guard the way, entrance, access to the tree of life. What a terrible situation it would have been if Adam had eaten of the tree of life and so have been perpetually established in his fallen state. God sent a contingent of glorious and trusted cherubim to guard access to the tree to prevent that. We don't know Adam's reaction to witnessing these glorious cherubim for the first time in human history. Perhaps awe, fright, and wonder are all emotions that come to mind. In other sections of the Bible, we are told that how people reacted to seeing angels. Zechariah, for example, in Luke chapter 1, verses 11 through 13. And an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing to the right of the altar of incense, where Zechariah saw the angel. He was troubled and overcome with fear. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, because your petition in prayer was heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you will name him John." Adam realized that his transgression had cut him off from the company and presence of a holy God. Oddly enough, the next occurrence of the cherubim in the Bible involves recovering what was lost. In Exodus chapter 25, Moses was given specific and detailed instructions on how to make several articles of furniture that would be used in the tabernacle. The Ark of the Covenant and the mercy seat, where God promised to meet and commune with Moses, were the first to be detailed. What did God want to go over or on top of the mercy seat? He chose representations of the cherubim in gold. What an awesome sight that must have been. The cherubim associated with the very presence of God. For those two sources in the Bible, it appears as though the cherubim's major responsibility may be to declare man's sinfulness and protect the presence of God from sinful men. Cherubim are real and powerful beings. However, the cherubim in the Bible were often representative of heavenly things. Ezekiel chapter 10 verses 8 through 14. Beneath their wings the cherubim seemed to have something in the form of a man's hand. Then I looked, and behold, there were 4 wheels beside the cherubim, one wheel beside one cherub and another wheel beside each other cherub. And the appearance of the wheels was like a sparkling Tarshish stone, beryl. As for their appearance, all 4 looked alike, as if one wheel were within another wheel. When they moved, they went in any of their 4 directions without turning as they went. But they followed in the direction which they faced, without turning as they went. Their whole body, their backs, their hands, their wings, and the wheels were full of eyes all around, even the wheels belonging to all 4 of them. Regarding the wheels attached to them, I heard them called the whirling, rolling, revolving wheels, and each one had 4 faces. The first face was the face of the cherub, the second the face of a man, the third the face of a lion, and the fourth the face of an eagle. The cherubim are shown in Ezekiel 10 as having not only wings and hands, but also being full of eyes, encompassed by wheels within wheels. However, Ezekiel also paints a gloomy tone in chapter 10, and the cherubim provide the hint. The cherubim are associated with God's splendor. The Ophanim. The Ophanim are deeply intertwined with the movements and will of God. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 19. Whenever the living beings moved, the wheels moved with them, and when the living beings rose from the earth, the wheels rose also. We read of these angels in the book of Ezekiel. The book of Ezekiel was written during a very tough and challenging time for the Israelites, known as the Babylonian exile in 6th century BC. This was when they were taken away from their homeland against their will. During this hard time, when their religion and society were being turned upside down, Ezekiel shared his prophecies and visions, including those about the Ophanim. The depiction of the Ophanim aligns with the broader theme in Ezekiel of God's mobility. In a time when the temple in Jerusalem, seen as God's earthly dwelling, was destroyed, the vision of the Ophanim suggests that God's presence was not confined to any single place, but was instead dynamic and omnipresent. The term Ophanim originates from Hebrew, meaning wheels, which describes their unique representation in the Scriptures. Ophanims are unique compared to other types of angels. They are shown as both amazing spiritual beings and mysterious symbols. As for the wheels, it was cried unto them in my hearing, O wheel. Ezekiel chapter 10 verse 13. The Ophanim are most notably mentioned specifically in Ezekiel chapter 1 verses 15 through 21, where they are described as wheels within wheels, full of eyes all around. This alone sets them apart from the more familiar depictions of angels with human-like forms and wings. The eyes symbolize knowledge and awareness, suggesting that these angels are all-seeing or omniscient, a trait that aligns with the divine attribute of omnipresence. This scripture is part of a larger vision experienced by the prophet Ezekiel, filled with symbolic imagery and deep spiritual meaning. This part comes in where Ezekiel describes a vision involving 4 living creatures and a set of wheels associated with them. These wheels are what the Bible refers to as Ophanim. Ezekiel chapter 1 verses 15 through 16. Now, as I looked at the living beings, I saw one wheel on the ground beside the living beings, for each of the 4 of them. Regarding the appearance of the wheels and their construction, they gleamed like chrysolite, beryl, olivine, and the 4 were made alike. Their appearance and construction were a wheel, set at a right angle within a wheel. The concept of a wheel within a wheel can be seen as a representation of the intricate and hard-to-grasp ways in which God operates. Additionally, The wheel's unique ability to move in any direction without pivoting, as mentioned in the verses, may symbolize God's omnipresence and omniscience. Wherever the Spirit was about to go, they would go in that direction, and the wheels rose close beside them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. When those went, these went, and when those stood still, these stood still. And when those rose from the earth, the wheels rose close beside them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 20 through 21. The movement of the wheels is not random, but is directed by the Spirit, indicating divine guidance and purpose. The movement of the wheels is not independent. It's entirely in sync with the living creatures. This could symbolize the harmony between different aspects of God's will and its execution. The term spirit in the verse is critical. It's the driving force behind the movements of both the creatures and the wheels. In the biblical context, spirit often refers to the divine presence or the Holy Spirit. This suggests that the actions of these celestial beings are guided by divine intent. Over centuries, theologians and scholars have interpreted the role of Ophanim in various ways. Some people believe that the Ophanim, with their amazing look and the way they move, show how great and powerful God is in the universe. The Ophanim are seen as embodiments of the divine order, maintaining balance and harmony in the universe according to God's plan. The Ophanim are closely associated with the throne of God, which represents divine authority and governance. Their presence and actions are seen as integral to maintaining the order and structure of heaven. In the Bible, God's throne is a symbol that represents His power and the way He rules. The throne of God is like the ultimate symbol of His rule over the universe. The Ophanim are often described as being near this throne, or even part of its structure, showing that they are closely linked to God's power and decisions. Since the Ophanim are close to God's throne, they are seen as key players in making sure that God's rules and plans are carried out in heaven. This shows how they are always ready to uphold God's order and authority. Ophanim today. Ophanim have had a significant influence on art, literature, and popular culture. Their depiction in the book of Ezekiel has inspired various art forms, ranging from traditional religious paintings to modern digital images. This has played a crucial role in transforming the way Western societies perceive angels. Over the centuries, artists have been captivated by the unique description of the Ophanim. In ancient religious art, they were often depicted in accordance with Ezekiel's vision, emphasizing their otherworldly and mysterious nature. This portrayal challenged the conventional depiction of angels as human-like figures with wings. Instead, artists explored more abstract and symbolic representations, highlighting the divine mystery and omnipresence associated with the Ophanim. In contemporary times, the influence of the Ophanim can be observed in digital art and visual media. These celestial beings have been portrayed in numerous ways, ranging from abstract and symbolic styles to more realistic depictions of wheels and eyes. This shift in artistic representation demonstrates a sustained fascination with these entities and a broader attempt to creatively articulate spiritual concepts. The impact of the Ophanim goes beyond just art. In books and stories, these angels have encouraged authors to write about topics like godliness, mysterious spiritual truths, and otherworldly phenomena. In popular culture, the Ophanim have appeared in various forms, from characters in fantasy novels and films to motifs in video games and graphic novels. These representations mix classic ideas from the Bible with modern views, attracting many people and making them more interested in the mysterious parts of studying angels. Yes, there are beings that are not from this world in the Bible. What else is out there? The Bible's mysterious beings, whether spiritual, celestial, or something else entirely, remind us that there are more things in heaven and earth that are created by God more than we've ever dreamt of, and that's an exciting thought.